Hello everyone, I am Priyanka Gore. Welcome back to my channel Learning with Pace. So in this lecture we are going to discuss about an essay which is of myself, and this essay was written by Abraham Cowley, and this essay was published in 1668. In this particular essay, Cowley has included an ode which he wrote while he was very young, and he has talked about his childhood days, childhood memories as well. So the very first line of this essay, it is hard and nice subject for a man to write of himself. So by this line, Cowley meant that for a writer, it's hard as well as it is nice to choose himself as a subject to write about himself. I mean, खुद के बारे में एक राइटर के लिए लिखना जितना मुश्किल होता है उतना ही नाइस भी होता है. It grates means annoy his own heart to say anything of disparagement. Disparagement means contempt या hatred या फिर to degrade someone. So by this line, Abraham Cowley meant that for a writer, when he choose himself as a subject and when he say anything of contempt for himself, then it grates his own heart, the reader's ear, to hear anything of praise for him, and it annoys reader's heart as well whenever a writer says anything praiseworthy about himself. So that's why he says that it's very hard as well as nice subject for a writer to choose himself as the center of the play, as the theme of the play, or whenever a writer writes about himself, it's very hard and nice as well. Why? Because whenever he would say something very contempt about himself, then it would grate his own heart, because nobody likes to criticize himself, right? And on the other hand, if he would say something very praiseworthy, then it will annoy readers' ears as well. Because no reader likes such writer who always writes praiseworthy stuff about himself. There is no danger from me of offending him in this kind. So he says that it's not his intention to offend, I mean to upset his own reader. Neither my mind, nor my body, nor my fortune allow me any materials of that vanity. Vanity means किसी चीज़ पर proud करना. So he says that he had no intention, or whenever Cowley writes about himself, that time he never keep any intention in his mind to offend his readers, because his mind, his body, his fortune, these things never allowed him anything or any material on which he could show vanity, on which he could show any sort of proud. It is sufficient for my own contentment that they have preserved me from being scandalous or remarkable on defective side. Contentment means satisfaction. Preserved means to save something. So he says that neither my body nor my fortune or my mind has ever given me such sort of material on which I can show vanity. But whatever I have, I am whatever I have that is sufficient for me, for my own contentment, for my own satisfaction. So Cowley is claiming that whatever the material he has, whatever the fortune he has, he is satisfied in those materials, because those materials has always preserved him, has always saved him from falling into scandalous or defective side. So all in all, the crux of this line is whatever the material Cowley is having, he is satisfied in that, because all these materials has always saved him from being humiliated. So this scandalous and defective side means disgrace or humiliation. But besides that, I shall here speak of myself only in relation to subject of these precedent discourses. Precedent means anything which is official or official decision. Discourses means long discussion. So he's saying that besides that, whatever he said in the very first line of this essay, that means it's very hard for a writer, and nice as well, to choose himself as a subject, but besides that, he will talk about himself in this precedent discourse. I mean, in this long essay, he will talk about himself, he will choose himself as a subject. Shall be likelier means most probably, ठीक है? Most probably, thereby to fall into contempt, then rise up to the estimation of people. So he's saying that besides that, it's very hard for him, or very nice as well, for him to choose himself as a subject, but still he will going to talk about himself in this particular essay. And most probably when he will talk about himself, most of the people won't like that. Okay, so he's saying that people might not like whenever he would talk about himself. So might be people will show what? Contempt, will show hatred than the praise. Estimation of the most of the people, that means कि शायद ऐसा हो सकता है कि बहुत सारे लोग उनको पसंद ना करें, बल्कि उनकी तरफ hatred show करें. As far as my memory can return back into my past life, here Abraham Cowley is sharing his childhood days. Before I knew or was capable of guessing what the world or glories or businesses of it were, the natural affection of my soul gave me a secret bent of aversion from them. Aversion means antipathy or hatred. Natural affections means natural inclination. So in this line, Abraham Cowley is sharing his childhood days. As far as my memory can return back into past life. That means as far as he could remember his childhood days, by the time he was, or by the time he could become capable of guessing that what the world, what the glories, or what this business is. So by the time he understood the worldly things, he became disgusted with those things. He was, naturally got aviated from all the worldly materials. The natural affection of my soul, that means the natural inclination of his soul. So his soul naturally deviated, naturally deviated from all the worldly things. And why it happened? Because of aversion from them. Them means worldly things. Them means world glories or businesses. Okay. So he's saying that it was a natural inclination towards other things, like he wanted to be alone always. He always wanted to be with his books, but he never wanted to indulge into worldly stuff. So he some sort of developed hatred towards this worldly stuff, and it was the natural deviation of his soul. As some plants are said to turn away from others. So in plant life, you will find that it's so natural for plants to separate from each other by an antipathy imperceptible to themselves. Antipathy means hatred, imperceptible means unnoticeable. So he's saying that plants turn away from each other, plant separates from each other due to antipathy, and which is imperceptible to themselves. I mean, plants can never understand that why they got why it got separated from other plants, and it is inscrutable for man's understanding as well. That means it is mystery for man's understanding also. I mean, man can never understand that why it happened. Inscrutable means mystery. So the crux of this line is that, as far as he can recall his childhood days, or by the time he could understand that what the worldly things are, he became disgusted with those things, and his soul naturally turned away, or his soul naturally deviated from all the worldly things, and it was the secret bent of aversion. I mean, ये जो hatred थी ना worldly things की तरफ, वो बिल्कुल secretly थी. वो अब्राहम कावले को खुद नहीं पता चला. इट वॉज इम्परसेप्टेबल, अननोटिसेबल टू हिम एज वेल. जैसे कि अगर प्लांट्स की बात करें, सम प्लांट्स टर्न अवे from each other due to antipathy, and it is imperceptible, it is unnoticeable for the plants to understand it, and it is mysterious for the man's understanding as well. Even when I was very young boy at school, instead of running about on holidays and playing with my fellows, I was wont to steal from them and walk into fields. So again, he is giving an example of his childhood days, that when he was in school, he was very young, of course. So when he was very young boy at school, that time, instead of running about on holidays, that means in holidays he never used to play along with his fellows. I mean, he never played with his friends or other companions. He used to stay away from other companions, and instead of playing, what he used to do? He used to steal. This WONT won't matlab hai used to. Okay. So rather than playing with his companions or his fellows, he used to steal from them. He used to steal books from them and used to had a walk in the fields. So either he would be walking alone or with such company with whom he can share same temperament, with whom he can share same nature. So Cowley is saying when he was young boy at school, he never played with his fellows in holidays. Instead of playing with them, he used to steal books from them, and he used to had a walk in the fields, either alone so that he can read books peacefully, or either with one companion with whom he can share the same or the similar nature. I was then so much enemy to all constraint. Constraint means some sort of restriction. So Abraham Cowley is saying that he never liked rules, he never liked restrictions on him, that my masters could never prevail on me, that my masters could never force constraint on me, could never force or exercise any sort of rules and regulations on me by any persuasions or encouragements to learn without books the common rules of grammar in which they dispensed. Dispensed means complete. They dispensed with me alone because they found I made a shift to do the usual exercise out of my own reading and observation. Abraham Cowley is saying, I was then too much enemy to all constraint. That means I was enemy to some sort of rules or regulation. In fact, my school masters could never prevail on me. मतलब मेरे भी school masters जो हैं वो मेरे ऊपर हावी नहीं हो सके and ना ही मुझे किसी constraint में रख सके. So my masters could never confine me within the four walls by any persuasion. I mean by any sort of belief or conviction, or by encouragement, or by cheering me up. That means he's saying that I never liked rules, and he never, Abraham Cowley never liked restrictions on him as well, and his masters could not put restriction on him either by any sort of belief, conviction, or any sort of cheering. To learn without books the common rules of grammar in which they dispensed with me alone. He's saying that his masters or his school fellows, they used to complete the grammar. They used to follow rules in grammar, and they used to complete the grammar without me alone. That means he's saying that when I wasn't in the class, that time masters used to complete the grammar by following the common rules, and I mean यहाँ पर Abraham Cowley हैं, that he never liked any sort of rules, not in fact the rules of grammar. In fact, he used to complete grammar by his own reading and by his own observation. So the crux of this line is that Abraham Cowley never liked rules and regulations on him. His masters could never put restriction on him by either persuasion or encouragement, matlab by either conviction or sort of cheering. And his school masters and his fellows used to do the grammar exercise without Cowley, because Cowley liked to do grammar out of his own observation and out of his own reading. Subsequently, he has added an ode here so that you can come to know the nature of Abraham Cowley when he was young. So he wrote this ode when he was 13 years old, but we will discuss about this ode in part 2 of this essay, and you will come to know that how his nature was when he was young. Okay, and इस ओड के बारे में हम नेक्स्ट वीडियो में बात करेंगे, और यहाँ से हम शुरू करेंगे बिकॉज वी हैव टू कंप्लीट द ओड ऑल टुगेदर, एंड यहीं से ओड के बारे में शुरुआत हुई है. ऑल इन ऑल, हाउ डिड यू लाइक माई लेक्चर? यू कैन टेल मी इन द कॉमेंट सेक्शन. यू कैन follow me on Instagram, and you can join my Telegram channel as well. Please do not forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much. Hello everyone, I am Priyanka Gaur. Welcome back to my channel Learning with Pace. So in this video we'll continue the analysis of myself, which is an essay written by Abraham Cowley, and this is the second part of the analysis. We have already completed part 1. If you haven't watched part 1 video, then for your convenience I can attach the link in the description box. So let's start the video without any delay. That I was then of the same mind as I am now. Here Abraham Cowley is confessing that he is still the same as he was in his childhood days. So here this word then, it is addressing Abraham Cowley's childhood days. So Abraham Cowley is confessing that even today his nature is still the same as it was in his childhood days. Or you can say his mind is still the same as it was in his childhood days. So this is what Abraham Cowley is confessing in this line. May appear by the letter end of an ode which I made when I was but 13 years old, and which was then printed with many other verses. So here Abraham Cowley is saying that he is still the same person as he was in his childhood days, and you can know about his nature that has apparently appeared in the letter end, I mean the closing part of the ode. And this ode he has written when he was just 13 years old. Since Abraham Cowley was very intelligent, very precocious child, so he has already written ode when he was just 13 years old. And this ode, it was printed with many other verses that written by Abraham Cowley. The beginning of it is boyish. Now Abraham Cowley is confessing that the beginning of the ode is bit immature. Boyish means immature. But the part of the ode which I here set down, if a very little were corrected, I should hardly now be much ashamed. So Abraham Cowley is saying the beginning of this ode is bit immature, is boyish, but the part of the ode which he is including here in the essay, it demands correction. It needed some correction, but still he is proud of himself. Now all in all, what is the crux of these lines? So when Abraham Cowley is confessing and telling everyone that his nature, his mind is still the same as it was in his childhood days. So what kind of nature he is talking about? Basically, Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that in his childhood days, when he was young, he never liked to be with much company, and he never wanted to follow any rules and regulation. He loved to do his own reading, own observation, and he always wanted to be alone with his books so that he can find pleasure in reading. So this nature he is talking about, that he still has the same nature. Okay? And he is talking about the ode which he has completed when he was just 13 years old, and you can identify his nature in the closing part of the ode. And this ode, when it was printed, it wasn't printed alone. In fact, it was printed with many other verses written by Abraham Cowley. Then Abraham Cowley is confessing that the beginning of the ode is immature, but the part of the ode which he has included in this essay, it demands little correction, but still Abraham Cowley is proud of himself. Okay. So this is the latter part of the ode which he has completed when he was just 13 years old, and this closing part in which Abraham Cowley is sharing his nature, and you will come to know or you will become more familiar with Abraham Cowley by reading this closing part of the ode. Although in the opinion of Abraham Cowley it needs very little correction, but still Abraham Cowley is proud of himself because it is bit mature if we compare it with the beginning of the ode. Okay. This only grant me that my means may lie too low for envy, for contempt too high. Abraham Cowley is basically confessing that whatever he has here, my means, इसका मतलब है resources. So Abraham Cowley is confessing that whatever resources he has, he is very much satisfied with that, because he just want moderate level of resources in his life, neither too low nor too high. Because if Abraham Cowley would be having too low resources, then people will show contempt towards him. If he would be having high resources in his life, then people will show envy toward him. Some honor I would have, not from great deeds, but good alone. So Abraham Cowley is wishing that he also want to be recognized. He also wants some honor in his life, but he want this honor or this recognition not by doing any great deeds, in fact by doing any good deeds. I mean, ये बड़े काम करके नहीं बल्कि अच्छे काम करके फेमस होना चाहते थे, अच्छे काम करके रिस्पेक्ट पाना चाहते थे. The unknown are better than ill known. Rumor can ope the grave. Abraham Cowley never wanted to be famous by doing any ill things or by doing any wrong deeds. So Abraham Cowley is saying it's better to be always unknown rather than being famous by doing any wrong act, because the rumors can lead to grave. Okay, rumor can lead someone to death. So that's why Abraham Cowley is saying, he is confessing that being unknown is always better than ill known. Acquaintance I would have, but when it depends not on the numbers but the choice of friends. As I told you that Abraham Cowley, he never wanted to be with much people. He always wanted to be alone because he found pleasure in reading. Okay, but if he ever wanted to be with someone, that person should share the same or the similar nature as Abraham Cowley has. So basically Abraham Cowley is saying that acquaintance I would have, I mean I want friends. Okay, Abraham Cowley wants friend in his life, but it depends not on the number, in fact on the choice of friends. So Abraham Cowley doesn't believe in the quantity of friends. In fact, he wants the quality in his friends. So he always wanted friends. He always wished for friends, but a good friend. Okay. And one more thing you must remember, Abraham Cowley, although wanted to be alone, but if he ever wanted any friend in his life, then the friend should have the same nature as Abraham Cowley has. In fact, Abraham Cowley doesn't want too much people, too much friend in his life, but अगर एक दो फ्रेंड भी उनको चाहिए थे तो वो उनमें क्वालिटी होनी चाहिए उन फ्रेंड्स में. इसके बारे में अब्राहम काउले यहाँ बात कर रहे हैं. Books should not business entertain the light and sleep as undisturbed as death that night. My house a cottage more than palace should be fitting for all my use, no luxury. So Abraham Cowley in the very first line of this ode is saying that the purpose of book is you to get the knowledge. So entertain the light means knowledge, enlightenment. So he is talking about the purpose of books, that the purpose of books is you to get the knowledge, to enlighten your soul. And the purpose of book is not to occupy any business and mint money or to occupy any job. In fact, you should enlighten your soul by reading books. Then Abraham Cowley is talking about his cottage, which is very small. So he's saying that my house, a cottage, my house is very small. And then palace, I mean it is very small as compared to palace. Abraham Cowley did not want any big house, neither a very big house nor any palace. So Abraham Cowley is saying that he is very much satisfied with his small cottage, because in this small cottage he sleeps as undisturbed as death. ओके बिकॉज उनको शांति की नींद आती है अपने छोटे से घर में. ये बात अब्राहम काउले यहाँ कहना चाहते हैं. एंड देन सब्सिक्वेंटली अब्राहम काउले इज एडिंग हियर दैट हिज कॉटेज, I mean his small house, it is very much purposeful and it fits according to his livelihood. And Abraham Cowley doesn't want any luxury in his life. He always wanted a small house, and he still has a very small house and very much satisfied with this small house. And this small house, it fits all his it fit for all his uses, it fit for all his purpose, because he doesn't want any luxury in his life. This small house is enough for his livelihood. My garden painted over with nature's hand, not art's, and pleasures yield. Horace might envy in his Sabine field. Abraham Cowley is talking about the garden in his small house. He's saying that my small house has a very beautiful garden, because my garden is decorated. Painted over means decorated with nature's hand. I mean with the beauty of nature, not arts. That means it is not artificially decorated. And pleasure yields, since his garden is beautified with nature's beauty, that's why it produces pleasure. Horace might envy in his Sabine field. So Sabine field was gifted to Horace by his patron, and Sabine field is very much beautiful and very big. So here Abraham Cowley is comparing his small garden with Sabine field, and this Sabine field was gifted to Horace by his patron. So Abraham Cowley is saying that his garden in his small house is so much beautiful because it is decorated with nature's beauty, not by artificial beauty. And since his garden is beautified with nature's hand, that's why it always it always yield happiness, it always produces pleasures. And might be Horace will feel envious towards his garden because his garden is very much beautiful as compared to Sabine field. Okay, so this is what Abraham Cowley is saying, that he is very much satisfied with his small cottage and the garden. Okay. Thus would I double my life's fading space, for he that runs it well twice runs his race. Fading space means disappearing. Abraham Cowley is saying since his life is disappearing, that's why he want to double his life. I mean he want to enjoy the every moment of his life. For he that runs it well twice runs his race. So by this line, Abraham Cowley meant the one person who enjoys every moment is the real winner of life, and he wins the race twice to live this life. So basically अब्राहम काउले का कहने का मतलब है कि जो इस जिंदगी में खुशियों से जीता है, okay, who finds happiness in every moment, that person wins the race. Okay, and in this true delight, these unbought sports, this happy state, I would not fear nor wish my fate, but boldly say each night, tomorrow let my sun his beams display, or in clouds hide, I have lived today. True delight means happiness. Unboard sports means natural activity. So Abraham Cowley is saying that he finds happiness in every moment of his life, and he always want to enjoy the every moment of his life, and this is the true delight. And this delight he finds in the natural activities, and this is his happy state. I would not fear nor wish my fate, but boldly say each night. Abraham Cowley is saying that he doesn't feel any sort of fear by thinking about distressing stuff, or he doesn't feel fear by finding any sorrow. And then he say that he would boldly declare that tomorrow let my sun his beams display. Here he is talking about happiness, or in clouds hide them. That means now he is talking about the darkness or the sorrow. I have lived today. So Abraham Cowley is saying that I do not care what my tomorrow brings. I do not care if my tomorrow will bring or would be full of sorrow. Okay? And I do not care if my tomorrow is full of happiness. Okay? Beams display means happiness. Clouds hide means sorrow. So Abraham Cowley is saying that boldly each night I am saying that whatever tomorrow is, like tomorrow hold happiness or the sorrow, I do not care, because I have lived today. If I have lived today, that means I have won the race to live this life. Okay, so basically Abraham Cowley is saying that all should live in today. I mean, all should live in the present. Do not care about the future. Okay, what future hold for you? Do not care about that. Just live what you have in present time. ओके कि आज जैसा भी दिन है आपका, आज में जियो. अगर आप आज में जी गए हो, दैट मीन्स आपने इस ज़िंदगी को अच्छे से जिया है एंड आप इस ज़िंदगी जीने की रेस में जीत गए हैं. ओके, तो ये कहना चाहते हैं अब्राहम काउले. So we have already done the analysis of an ode, or I would say the letter part of an ode, which he has included in this essay. And from tomorrow we'll be continuing the analysis from here, and that would be the third part of the video. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. You can follow me on Instagram, you can follow me on Telegram as well. I have already mentioned the username and the link in the description box, and you can find the username on your display as well. If you haven't liked this video, please like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you so much. Hello everyone, I am Priyanka Gaur. Welcome back to my channel Learning with Pace. In this English prose series, we are going to continue the analysis of myself, which is an essay written by Abraham Cowley, and this is the third part of the analysis. If you haven't watched the previous two, then I'll attach the link in the description box for your convenience. So now let's start the analysis. You may see by it, I was even then acquainted with the poets. So here, even then is referring his childhood days, and acquainted means familiar. So Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that how his inclination towards poetry started. So by this line, Abraham Cowley meant when he was just 13 years old, that time also he was familiar with several poets and the works written by them. For the conclusion is taken out of Horace. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that the conclusion of the ode, which he completed when he was just 13 years old, and the part of the ode he has already added here in the essay. So the conclusion of this ode is taken out from the works written by Horace. And perhaps it was the immature and immoderate love of them. Immoderate means limitless or the extreme love. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone, since he was familiar with the several works written by several poets. So his love towards these poets and the works written by them, the love was immature and extreme love, which stamped first or rather engraved these characters in me. And the love towards these works or these poets has not only stamped, in fact, it has engraved the characters in the mind of Abraham Cowley. And when something is engraved in your mind, it can never be erased, okay? And it expands with your age. So here Abraham Cowley is giving an example of a young tree. They were like letters cut into the bark of young tree, with which the tree still grows proportionably. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that if you will put letters in the bark of small tree, then as the plant grows, as the proportion of plant grows, the letter will also get bigger. So in the same way, the characters that engraved in the mind of Abraham Cowley also expanded with the age. But how this love came to be produced in me so early is hard question. So now Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that if you will ask me that how this love started, it is very hard question to answer, because Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that he also does not remember that how this inclination towards poetry started very early. But subsequently he is telling a little chance, he is telling a little memory and recalling his childhood days, that how this love started. I believe I can tell the particular little chance that filled my head first with such chimes of verse as have never since left ringing there. Abraham Cowley is saying that it's very hard to answer that how his inclination towards poetry started so early, but still he can share a little chance. He can share a little memory that how his inclination towards the chimes of verse, towards the rhythmic music of poetry started. And since then it is ringing. And after that he could not give up on poetry. For I remember when I began to read, to take some pleasure in it, there was wont here means used to, okay, used to lie in my mother's parlor. So during medieval Christian times, the mother's parlor, so the parlor here meant the place where monks and nuns used to live, and they used to have the conversation with the outside world, okay. So here Abraham Cowley is telling us the memory, the little chance. So what kind of memory he is sharing? That he is he's still into the memory. He still can share that how he started reading and how he started finding pleasure in reading when he used to sit in his mother's parlor, in a place where monk and nuns used to sit. And from here we can get the idea, might be his mother was a nun. I know not by what accident, for she herself never in her life read any book but of devotion. Here Abraham Cowley is talking about his mother and telling everyone that his mother never read any book except the devotional books, except the religious books. And the reason is still unknown to Abraham Cowley. But there was wont to lie Spencer's work. Now Abraham Cowley is saying in his mother's parlor there used to be several works that written by Spencer, and the works were in the parlor of his mother. And this I happened to fall upon, and there I started reading Spencer's work and was infinitely delighted. Infinitely found pleasure with the stories of knights, with the stories of giants and monsters and brave houses. Brave houses means noble houses. which I found everywhere there. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that his mother never read any book except the religious books, and in his mother parlor he found many works written by Spencer, and he found pleasure in reading Spencer's work. He went through many stories like stories of knights, giants, monsters, and noble houses, etc. And he found the works or the books that written by Spencer. He found these books everywhere in his mother parlor, though my understanding had little to do with all this. So here Abraham Cowley is saying that he could not understand what is written in the works of Spencer because he was just 13 years old. Okay. But by degrees, with the tinkling of the rhyme and dance of the numbers, so that I think I had read him all over before I was 12 years old and was thus made a poet. So here Abraham Cowley is saying that he was just 13 years old, so he could not understand what is written in the works of Spencer, but still he read all the books. Okay, he read all the books, and that's where he found pleasure, and he completed most of the books before he was 12 years old. And this is how the love towards poetry started, and he made a poet. So since childhood he always wanted to establish himself as a poet. So now, so far what we have read, here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that he used to sit in his mother's parlor and used to read all the books and found pleasure in reading the books. There, in his mother's parlor, he found the works of Edmund Spencer and the works written by him. Okay, so Edmund Spencer's work was full of the stories of knights, giants, monsters, and brave houses. So he completed the works written by Edmund Spencer before he was 12 years old. And by degrees, I mean gradually or slowly, with the tinkling of the rhyme and dance of the number. So here he is talking about the rhythm or the musical tone of the poetry. So he is saying that gradually, when he read all the poetry and when he read all the works written by Edmund Spencer before he was 12, so that's how his inclination towards poetry started, and तभी से उनके मन में ये था कि वो एक पोइट बनना चाहते हैं. Although इस टाइम पर he was just 12 years old, he could not understand the whole crux or the whole meaning of these poetry, but still he read all of them, and gradually the love started towards poetry. These affection of mind and my heart wholly set upon letters. So here Abraham Cowley is recalling his youth days now. He is saying since childhood he was into poetry and his mind always inclined towards poetry. Okay, set upon letters means poetry. I went to university. Abraham Cowley went to a university, which is Cambridge University. So why he went to university? Because he wanted to study further and he wanted to establish himself as a poet. But soon torn from thence. Thence means there. Okay. And torn means expel, matlab nikal dena. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone when he went to Cambridge University, he was expelled from there. Why he was expelled? Due to violent public storm. So here violent public storm is used for civil war. And why Abraham Cowley was expelled? Because that time in civil war, Abraham Cowley was supporting the brave houses. He was a royalist. So that's why he was expelled from the university, which would suffer nothing to stand where it did, but rooted up every plant, even from the princely cedar to me the hyssop. So here Abraham Cowley is saying that due to civil war, everyone had to suffer. Okay, this war was harmful for everyone because it rooted up every plant. Every plant here is referring everybody, every person. Okay, this civil war ruined every person, even from princely cedar, that means even from reputed people, to me, who is hyssop. Hyssop is basically a small bush, okay, a small plant, and princely cedar is used for reputed people. So here Abraham Cowley meant this civil war ruined everybody. Everybody had to suffer due to this civil war, and it rooted up every people, even from the reputed family to the middle class family. Okay, इन मतलब अब्राहम कावले खुद को मिडिल क्लास फैमिली में इंक्लूड करके कह रहे हैं कि इस सिविल वॉर ने सब कुछ ख़त्म कर दिया था, चाहे कोई वो रेप्यूटेड फैमिली से बिलोंग करता हो, चाहे फिर मेरे जैसा कोई आम आदमी हो. ओके, सो इट वॉज इक्वली हार्मफुल फॉर people like from reputed to people like middle class. Okay, yet I had as good fortune as I could have befallen me in such a tempest. Here tempest is telling or referring public storm, I mean civil war. So Abraham Cowley is saying that he was still fortunate enough because in this tempest, in this civil war, he was having a good luck. Okay, his luck was with him. For I was cast by into the family of the one of the best person, into court of one of the best princess of the world, because in this civil war, when he was expelled from the university, so he got the support from the princess and he used to live in the court of the princess. So he's saying in this civil war he was fortunate enough that he was living with best persons. Okay, and that time in the civil war he was living in the court of the princess. Now so far what we have read here, Abraham Cowley is telling about civil war. Okay, and this civil war disturbed everyone, right? This civil war disturbed everyone, and it not only equally harmful for the reputed people, in fact for the common people like Abraham Cowley. Now subsequently Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that he was fortunate enough. Okay, he was fortunate enough during this civil war. Why? Because during this time he was living with the family of one of the best persons. Here he is talking about William Harvey. So he was living with William Harvey's family for 10 years. He was there, he was living with them, and in civil war he followed princess. Okay, and now by giving this word princess he is referring Henrietta Maria. So he is saying that he followed princess to Paris and he found shelter in the court of the Henrietta Maria, and that's how he is telling everyone that he was very fortunate enough that he found shelter in such tempest and he was living with the family of one of the best persons. So the rest part of the essay we will complete in the next video, and once the whole part will be completed, I'll compile all the parts in one single video. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can follow me on Instagram. You can join my Telegram channel as well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Keep learning. Hello everyone, I am Priyanka Gaur. Welcome back to my channel Learning with Pace. So in this video we'll continue the analysis of myself, which is an essay written by Abraham Cowley. Now though I was engaged in ways most contrary to the original design of my life. Engaged means busy, contrary means opposite, original design means original plans. So here Abraham Cowley is telling everyone that during civil war he was engaged in such things that was opposite to his original plans, and he was busy in such things which he never wanted in his life. Into much company and no small business and into a daily sight of greatness. So during Civil War, he got into many things which he never wanted in his life, such as he was into much company, and we have already read in the initial paragraph of the essay that he always wanted to be alone with his books. Although he wanted friends, but he wanted good friends. So he always believed in quality rather than quantity. But during Civil War, he had to go opposite to his nature. So during Civil War, he was with much company and he was occupied with big businesses into a daily sight of greatness. So during the Civil War, he saw a lot of expensive and great things which he never wanted in his life. Both militant means war, triumphant means victorious, for that was the state then of English and French courts. So he is telling the condition of English and French courts during that time period. So during Civil War, he is narrating that English and French courts both were busy and both courts were almost occupied with only militant or triumphant things. So in the English as well as in French courts, he saw militant and triumphant things. Yet all this was so far from altering my opinion. Now Abraham Cowley is admitting that although he was into political turmoil, he was into much company, he was occupied with big businesses, but nothing could change his opinion. Okay, so nothing could alter, nothing could change his inclination towards poetry. That it only added the confirmation of reason to that which was before but natural inclination. So here once again he is giving the confirmation that how he got inclined towards poetry. So here Abraham Cowley is telling us that from this political turmoil and this political life, he got the confirmation of reason that why he had natural inclination towards poetry and why he wanted to establish himself as a poet. So all in all, what is the meaning of this line? Abraham Cowley is conveying that how his life was during Civil War, that how he was engaged in such things which was contrary, which was opposite to his nature. He had to live with much company, he was occupied with big businesses, although it was contrary to his nature, but it was the need of the hour. And he is telling us that this big company or big businesses or great sight, it could not change his opinion. And from this political turmoil, he got the confirmation of reason that why he has natural inclination towards poetry. All right. I saw plainly all the paint of what kind of life the nearer I came to it. So here Abraham Cowley is referring the political life. He is saying that in political turmoil he has seen many things apparently, and the nearer he came to this political life, he saw apparently that what kind of life is this. So he found beauty in this life, but which I did not fall in love with when. So on the one hand, Abraham Cowley is saying that this political life, it was real beauty, but he did not fall into the trap of this beauty. It was real, was not like to bewitch or entice me. Bewitch means attract, entice means tempt karna. Me, when I saw it was adulterate. So here Abraham Cowley is giving a reason that why he did not fall in love with this political life. So Abraham Cowley is telling us that this political life was full of adulterate. Okay, he found adultery in this political life. That's why it could not bewitch or entice him. That's why this political life, due to adultery, could not attract or tempt Abraham Cowley, because Abraham Cowley wanted his life full of purity. Okay, so since Abraham Cowley always inclined towards the purity, so that's why he did not bewitch towards political life, since he saw that this political life is full of adultery or amalgamation. So now what Abraham Cowley meant by this line? Abraham Cowley said this political life was beautiful. No doubt it was beautiful. It was real beauty to live in this political condition. But this political life had too much adultery, and he never wanted his life to be so adulterated. So that's why this political life could not attract Abraham Cowley, and Abraham Cowley thought if he would be engaged in this adultery life, then his life will not be in the purest form. So that's why Abraham Cowley did not like this political life. I met with several great persons whom I liked very well, but could not perceive that any part of their greatness was to be liked or desired no more than I would be glad or content to be in the storm. So here Abraham Cowley is saying during Civil War he met great persons of the time period. He met great eminent personalities of the time period whom he liked very much. But Abraham Cowley, on the other hand, he is admitting that he could not understand their greatness was to be liked or desired. So basically, Abraham Cowley is saying and admitting that he liked few persons because it was the time, okay? It was the time of public storm. So might be this was the time of public storm, so he had to like several people, right? And he was doubtful about their greatness, but he liked several persons because of the time. Though I saw many ships means several people, which rid safely and bravely in it. So again, Abraham Cowley is telling us that it was the period of many hardships, but still he saw many people who got rid of this civil war, of this storm very easily, very safely and bravely. Although it was very difficult time, but people handled it very bravely, right? A storm could not agree with my stomach if it did with my courage. So again, Abraham Cowley is talking about civil war and the hardship of that time period. So he is saying during civil war, it was very much hard for the people to earn their livelihood. My stomach is referring livelihood here. Okay, and it was the time to show courage. So here अब्राहम काउले का कहने का मतलब है कि सिविल वॉर के टाइम पे कुछ लोग ऐसे थे जिनके लिए लाइवलीहुड अर्न करना मुश्किल था, बट ये टाइम कुछ ऐसा था जिसमें लोगों को अपना करेज, अपनी ब्रेवरी शो करनी थी, एंड फ्यू पीपल हैंडल्ड इट वेरी ब्रेवली. Though I was in a crowd of as good company as could be found anywhere. So Abraham Cowley is saying during civil war he was with such good company that he could ever found. Though I was in business of great and honorable trust, I ate at the best table. I ate at the best table means he was having best feast of his time. Enjoyed the best convenience for present subsistence that ought to be desired by a man of my condition in banishment and public distress. Since Abraham Cowley was banished from the country and he followed Queen, as I told you in the previous analysis, that how he followed Queen to Paris and he was living with the princess in her court. Okay, so during his banishment and during this public distress, Abraham Cowley was enjoying the best possible life, the best possible moment of the time. Okay, so now Abraham Cowley meant during civil war it was an appropriate time to show the courage, because the livelihood was difficult. It was very difficult time to earn the livelihood. But during this time period, when he was banished from this country and when the public distresses, the public turmoil were going on, so during this time Abraham Cowley was enjoying the best possible life of this time period, as he was enjoying the good company, he was enjoying the best table, I mean he was having the amazing food and he was having best convenience in his life. So जो भी उनके पास सिविल वॉर के टाइम पे था, उसके लिए अब्राहम काउले इज शोइंग दैट ही इज़ फॉर्चुनेट इनफ एंड ही इज़ ग्रेटफुल इनफ. Yet I could not abstain from renewing my old schoolboy's wish in copy of verse to the same effect. So here Abraham Cowley is saying that he could not abstain. I mean he could not refrain himself from resuming his old schoolboy's wish. I mean जो उनकी wish schoolboy के time पर थी, he could not refrain himself, if he could not restrain himself to putting his wish in the copy of verse. Well then, I now do plainly see this busy world and I shall never agree. So here Abraham Cowley is talking about the outcome of civil war. So he is saying that during civil war he saw many things. Okay, he saw political life very nearly, and he saw that world was too busy during that time. So now Abraham Cowley is giving a message that he never wanted busy world in his life, he never wanted too much people in his life. So whatever the condition during civil war, he could not agree with that time period. And I never then proposed to myself any other advantage from his majesty's happy restoration but the getting into some moderately convenient retreat in the country. So here Abraham Cowley is talking about restoration time period. In restoration, Charles II ascended the throne. So here majesty word is referring to Charles II. So Abraham Cowley is saying that since he was royalist, so he thought he would be getting an advantage from his majesty Charles II, and he did not want too much from his majesty. In fact, he just wanted to retreat back in his country. So as you all know that during civil war, Abraham Cowley, since he was royalist, so that's why he was banished from the country and he had to live in the banishment. But during restoration period, Abraham Cowley wished to come back to the country. So this is the advantage he is talking about, that it would be easy for him to get back into the country since it is the time of his majesty, which I thought in that case I might easily have encompassed, as well as some others with no greater probabilities or pretenses have arrived to extraordinary fortunes. So Abraham Cowley is saying that since it is the restoration time period, so he can easily come back to his country to follow his passion. So he can easily attain whatever he want, because it was the time period of restoration. Okay, it was the restoration time period. Okay, and restoration time period में उनको वो चीज़ें मिली जो उन्होंने सोची नहीं थी, विद एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी फॉर्चून, आई मीन एक ग्रेट लक के साथ उन्होंने वो सभी चीज़ें पाई थी. But I had before written a shrewd prophecy against myself. I think Apollo inspired me in truth, though not in the elegance of it. So here Abraham Cowley is talking about Apollo. Now you must be thinking that who Apollo is. So basically Apollo जो है वो प्रोफेसी के गॉड कहलाते हैं, राइट. सो अपोलो इज द गॉड ऑफ प्रोफेसी, एंड Abraham Cowley is saying that he has written a shrewd prophecy, a cunning prophecy against himself, and in this prophecy he has inspired by Apollo to write the truth, though you will not find any sort of elegance in this verse. So these are the verse we are talking about, and this is the prophecy he has written. Thou neither great at court nor in the war. So Abraham Cowley is saying that Abraham Cowley is referring himself that you are not great at court, neither you are good at war. Nor at the exchange shalt be, nor at the wrangling bar. Wrangling bar means dispute. Okay. So here Abraham Cowley is saying neither you are good at exchange, neither you are good at trading, and nor you are good at dispute. Content thyself with the small barren praise. So you should feel content, you should feel satisfied with whatever you have, or the small barren praise you get, which neglect verse does raise. So here Abraham Cowley meant that he has written neglected verse, and due to neglected verse or unproductive verse he is getting small barren praise. उनको झूठी जो praises मिल रही हैं उससे ना अब्राहम काउले को खुश हो जाना चाहिए. So he is saying you should feel content with whatever the praise you get because you have written unproductive verse. Okay. I met presently not only with many little encumbrances and impediments, but with so much sickness. So here encumbrances and impediment means burden. Abraham Cowley is saying that he is facing too much burden in his life, too much hindrance in his life, and not only this, he has fallen sick. So all these things are a kind of new misfortune for him, as would have spoiled the happiness of an emperor as well as mine. So he is saying whatever he is suffering, so it can spoil the happiness of an emperor. Rather he is such a common person. Okay, so अब्राहम काउले कह रहे हैं कि वो तो एक कॉमन इंसान है, उसको तो वैसे भी ये चीज़ें बहुत ज़्यादा परेशान करेंगी, बल्कि ये चीज़ें एक एम्परर की भी हैप्पीनेस को स्पॉइल कर सकती हैं. Yet I do neither repent nor alter my course. So again Abraham Cowley is saying yet, इतना होने के बाद भी, the burden he is facing, the sickness he is facing, he still is following his passion. He neither repent on his course, he neither repent on what he has decided or what was his original plan, or nor he changed his कोर्स. ओके, मतलब जो इन्होंने डिसाइड किया, जो चूज़ किया, ये ना तो उस पर रिपेंट करते हैं, ना रिग्रेट करते हैं, ना इन्होंने उस प्लान को कभी चेंज किया. सो इनका जो प्लान था दैट वाज, इनका पैशन था पोइट्री. ओके. So what Abraham Cowley wanted to convey in this paragraph, Abraham Cowley is saying if you want to follow your passion, you should follow it desperately without depending on the fortune or without without surrendering yourself. Do not surrender yourself. In fact, follow your passion very desperately. And God laugh on such people who quit their original plan and who take everything so easily. And again, Abraham Cowley is saying that he has seen many encumbrances, many burdens in his life. He was sick also, which was kind of misfortune, but he did not regret or he did not alter his plan which he has decided. Okay, so I hope you liked this video. And अभी हमारा जो ऑफ माई सेल्फ का पूरा ऐसे था, नाउ इट इज़ कम्प्लीटेड. इफ़ यू हैवेंट लाइक द वीडियो, प्लीज़ लाइक एंड शेयर दिस वीडियो, सब्सक्राइब माई चैनल if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can follow me on Instagram and Telegram as well. Thank you. Bye bye. Keep learning.